Welcome back, everyone. I really hope you caught our last explainer on AI robots replacing warehouse workers, because if you haven't, you definitely got to check it out. But today we are diving headfirst into a wildly fascinating business mystery. We are looking at the e-commerce battleground exactly as it stands in 2026. Now, on paper, Flipkart looks, well, completely unstoppable. We're talking about an absolute juggernaut of an Indian e-commerce leader, backed by none other than the global retail titan, Walmart, right? But then, you have this smaller, incredibly fast regional challenger operating mostly in the Middle East called Noon. And here's the crazy twist that we're going to unpack for you today. Noon isn't actually trying to be bigger than Flipkart. No, they're trying to be more efficient. And honestly, in the world of modern e-commerce, that specific distinction changes absolutely everything. Because as we're going to see, sometimes the biggest company in the room isn't necessarily the most profitable one.
But hey, real quick, before we completely decode this e-commerce battle, take just a second to engage with this explainer. Go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to officially join our Supply Chain Insiders community. Trust me, you really don't want to miss any of our deep dives into the hidden mechanics of global business.
All right, so here is our roadmap for today. We've got 1. Giants versus regional challengers. 2. The unit economics war. 3. Mastering the supply chain. 4. Global expansion versus regional focus. And lastly, 5. Who wins the efficiency game? Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Giants versus regional challengers, setting the stage.
Okay, let's set the stage by looking at exactly who is in the ring here. Let's start with the giant, Flipkart. They were founded back in 2007, making them true pioneers of Indian e-commerce. And today, they are majority owned by Walmart. They pull in revenue from marketplace commissions, direct retail, ads, financial services, the whole shebang. Their biggest strength? A totally staggering Indian market of 1.4 billion people, massive brand recognition, and ridiculously deep pockets. Now flip the script and look at Noon. Founded a full decade later in 2017, Noon is the newer kid on the block with a hyper-laser focus on the GCC. That's the Gulf Cooperation Council region. They also rely on marketplace commissions and some direct inventory, but they leverage this incredibly tight digital payments ecosystem in a really concentrated geographic area. It's a classic David versus Goliath setup.
But looking at all that scale, it brings up a massive, glaring question. If Flipkart is this unimaginably huge, literally backed by Walmart's endless resources, why on earth is e-commerce still so incredibly hard to make consistently profitable? Well, the reality is, at Flipkart's scale, complexity actually becomes the enemy. Think about it. Every single delivery, every promotional discount, every return t-shirt, it all piles immense pressure onto their profit margins. In a fiercely competitive, massive market like India, profitability is never a guarantee, literally no matter how big you get.
Section 2. The unit economics war, the hidden costs. Because here is the thing. Revenue is really only half the story. To understand who actually survives this battle, we have to pop the hood and look at the hidden mechanics of unit economics. These are the silent killers hidden inside literally every single order you place online. First up, the customer acquisition cost. That is just how much marketing cash it burned just to get you to click buy. Then you've got product subsidies and crazy aggressive discounts used to fight off competitors. Throw in the actual physical logistics and delivery costs, and finally, the absolute undeniable nightmare of e-commerce, returns and service handling. Seriously, it is quite literally where profit margins go to die. You can have a company that looks wildly successful on the surface, but underneath, they're suffocating under the weight of these 4 factors.
So let's put their models side by side conceptually. Flipkart is entirely built and optimized for massive national scale. But, that means heavily complex operations and brutal discount wars just to keep their slice of the pie. Scaling up doesn't magically create profit. Actually, scratch that, it often just multiplies your inefficiencies. Noon, on the flip side, operates in a much more concentrated, regional bubble. They have incredibly tight logistics control in key cities, which lets them iterate and optimize delivery cycles so much faster. A smaller map doesn't mean a weaker business, folks. It often just means the machine is way easier to steer.
Section 3. Mastering the supply chain, complexity versus control.
Okay, let's get into the physical reality of actually moving boxes from point A to point B. Look at the stark contrast in how these guys operate. Flipkart relies on this massive, heavily distributed warehouse network spread across the vast, incredibly varied geography of India. They use a mix of logistics partnerships because, frankly, they have to. They need that massive national reach. It's a powerhouse system, sure, but man, it is remarkably complex.
Now look over at Noon. They are utilizing regional warehouse hubs. They keep a really tight grip on in-house delivery, specifically focusing on major dense cities. This gives them an intense, almost obsessive focus on optimizing that ever-crucial last-mile delivery. And this brings us to a really fascinating business paradox that is absolutely defining the e-commerce landscape in 2026. Here it is. The more complex your system is, like Flipkart's giant national web, the harder it is to aggressively optimize your costs. But the more controlled the system is, like Noon's dense, urban-focused hubs, the faster you can actually execute efficiency improvements. The real battle they're fighting isn't who has the biggest warehouses. It's about the pure efficiency extracted out of every single order.
Section 4. Global expansion versus regional focus. Growing pains.
Let's zoom out a bit and analyze their overall expansion strategies. It is the classic business debate: scale versus focus. Flipkart is heavily entrenched in the massive Indian market. They're fighting tooth and nail every single day in one of the world's toughest retail environments, which means they've had pretty limited external expansion. They're essentially going all in on winning one colossal prize. Noon is taking a totally different path. They first established deep, focused dominance in the GCC. And now, from that rock-solid foundation, they're doing this very gradual, methodical scaling into adjacent markets, like Egypt and North Africa. And you know, history shows us something pretty consistently. Companies that try to expand too fast across too many wildly different regions almost always lose their operational efficiency way before they ever actually dominate the market.
Section 5. Who wins the efficiency game? The final verdict. So when the dust finally settles and we look way past just pure top-line revenue, who actually has the upper hand here? Well, the answer really depends on how you define success. Flipkart undeniably takes the crown when it comes to pure market size, the sheer mind-boggling scale of their operations, and building a massive long-term ecosystem. But Noon absolutely wins on regional focus, raw, hard-hitting operational efficiency, faster execution cycles, and ironclad logistics control in highly dense markets. Both of these models can absolutely succeed, but they are succeeding for fundamentally different reasons.
Which brings us to this absolutely vital insight from our source material. It says, e-commerce is not just a scale game anymore, it's an efficiency game at scale. And that hits the nail on the head. Flipkart represents scale in one of the biggest consumer markets on the planet. Noon represents hyper-focused execution in a tightly controlled regional market. The days of just burning cash and growing your way out of bad profit margins, yeah, those days are pretty much over.
This Flipkart versus Noon dynamic teaches us a very simple but totally profound truth. Market size alone absolutely does not guarantee dominance. Execution does. So I want to leave you with a question to mull over. When we look out at the global business landscape, does the future truly belong to the biggest player in the room, or does it belong to the most adaptable one?
Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this deep dive valuable, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you can keep getting these insights into logistics and global business strategy. And hey, you definitely won't want to miss our next explainer. We're going to uncover another incredible business mystery, the Suez Canal crisis, and how just one single disruption in global shipping can cost billions and literally reshape the global economy overnight. It's going to be a good one. I'll see you in the next one.